As we enter 2025 in earnest, can we take a moment to thank Genshin Impact? Yes, you heard me right. Can we take a moment to appreciate the position that HoYo has brought us to in the gacha space?
Boy, he just keeps going, doesn't he?
A game that is granted riddled with issues and negative aspects, that has refused to allow itself to be brought into the modern era, but at the same time, practically birthed that same modern era of gacha games, almost single-handedly. We're currently on the cusp, the very edge of a new phase in gacha, a golden age, if you will, a new time for the genre and hopefully an ever-evolving space going forward. With a list of games expanding all the time, the release of critically acclaimed titles such as Honkai Star Rail and Wuthering Waves undoubtedly have Genshin Impact directly to thank for their existence and success, along with many other titles upcoming in the near or not so near future. Titles such as Arknight's Enfield, Ananta, Neverness to Everness, Project 2/3 Utopia, Azure Premilia, and many others. They are all arguably directly born from the success of Genshin, a game that's in a position now that's very easy to meme on along with its insane fanbase, but that took gacha outside of the space itself. A game that really showed that titles in this space, beyond JPEGs of anime waifus fighting in instance turn-based combat intermittently between disgustingly designed menu systems, could actually be worth developing and be very, very profitable. Granted, Honkai Impact 3rd from the same developers had already taken a step in the direction of evolution, along with PGR, but Genshin didn't just take a step, it took a huge leap. With gameplay heavily inspired by Zelda Breath of the Wild, it not only took the gameplay in the space to a 3D open world environment with action-orientated combat, but it took the space to a place where it hadn't quite reached before, a place where gameplay was the main factor in the game, where it could be considered a full-blown RPG with gacha monetization systems attached to it, rather than a gacha system with a pretty poor excuse for a game tacked onto it. A game that for its time made everything else look archaic in comparison, but now it's 2025 and Genshin is the one considered old-fashioned and out of date, with lackluster patches, little endgame development, and quality of life updates more scarce than socially adapted fanfiction writers, along with a cast of characters that seem more and more out of place. But it opened the gates to higher quality games that resemble the more typical gameplay experience outside the mobile market, the traditional AAA experience which had millions hooked around the globe, making HoYo billions, and with massive amounts of money comes trends and other companies wanting to take advantage of the growing audience and the potential that brings. Now we have Wuthering Waves, a game that took the Genshin formula and turned it up a notch, with improved skill-based action combat that's finely tuned to feel tight and responsive. Fans of the space flock to experience this new addition to the genre, with improved visuals, traversal mechanics, and an improved gacha system, along with constant quality of life updates that has kept the community incredibly happy with the response to the feedback and critiques. Wuthering Waves has played its part in evolving the space even more. Now, with HoYoverse's latest release, Zenless Zone Zero, we have seen arguably the best character rigging for animations and cutscenes we have seen in the space. With both games having launches that could have been considered less than optimal, both titles have gone on to make massive strides in improving on multiple fronts, from performance in Wuthering Waves to quality of life in both, and huge overhauls in Zenless Zone Zero, for example. And then to Renasita in Wuthering Waves, an update considered by many to be the pinnacle of gacha updates, an update so sweeping many see it as almost a re-release of the game, with massive improvements in storytelling, voice acting, and introducing an absolute game-changing system in the flight, adding a whole new level of freedom to the game, an update that should be applauded along with Zenless Zone Zero's attempts to improve the overall game. Now, with the release of the Arknight's Enfield closed beta, we've seen another step in evolving the space, with an interesting combat system reminiscent of party-based role-playing games and an incredibly unique addition to the genre, the actually quite deep base-building system that adds a totally new way to farm and grind in a gacha game. Not to mention the gacha system that in its current form seems to be another step in the right direction for this sticking point of gacha, but we still have a long way to go on that front. Then we can look to titles such as Ananta, a game that in theory, as we have yet to be privy to actual gameplay, could be another step in the right direction for the genre, bringing in elements of games such as Grand Theft Auto, minus the dark side, equipped with Spider-Man style traversal and action combat that includes environmental interaction rarely seen in the space. Along with what appears to be insane amounts of NPC population density, we really are seeing developers attempting to push the space forward, not only in a mechanical and systems sense, but an overall aspect of the gameplay loop itself. As players, we have to play our part in pushing development, giving critique and feedback when needed, and not allowing bad practices, or at least calling them out when they appear. With this ever-expanding high-quality library of titles, each game has to vie for our attention even more, and with competition, we get better products, better gameplay, and more competitive gacha systems, along with higher production quality. Story will be expected to be better, quality of life will be demanded, and characters will have to be improved, and the space overall should benefit. With this, there will be many titles that fall to the wayside and can't keep up, and the titles that really make an attempt to stand out along with everything else we have discussed will be the titles that potentially make billions, which should just speed up the snowball effect of improving the genre as a whole, or at least in theory. This space has the potential to evolve beyond what it is now, and I believe it will, with the help of more titles that have the Genshin effect but don't have the Genshin motto. Along with our help, we can all get better games and enjoy this new golden era of gacha games as much as possible. With our input, we can see titles push past the tropes they've become too comfortable with, improve the systems that people have been groomed to accept, and demand production quality we should be getting from companies making as much money as some in this genre. This is the part where we get to dictate the direction for some of our favourite games with our wallets. As we enter this new phase of gacha games and look back to the catalyst Genshin, it's also fair to recognise what Wuthering Waves has been doing to push this space forward. In regards to community feedback, responsiveness to problems, and listening to the fanbase, not to mention the massive quality increase that we have seen since launch, and a standard set for all games to follow. This should be championed. We should also appreciate the production values of Zenless Zone Zero, setting a baseline for how our game should look in animation and cutscene quality, and also be willing to make the changes needed to be successful and enjoyable. Then we can look to the future in what Enfield is achieving in unique gameplay additions. The less these games feel like gacha, the better our gacha games will become. Support the good, reject the bad, and this might actually be the start of the golden age.
So, what you're trying to say is that you fell here from another world? But when you wanted to leave and go on to the next world, your path was blocked by some unknown god?
Outlanders, your journey ends here. Who are you? The sustainer of heavenly principles. The arrogation of mankind ends now.